As an artist and researcher, I'd like to show you some images and tell you about an action research project here at University of the Arts London, in which staff and students have worked together to bring about change in the university. What began as a straightforward engagement with the climate crisis has led to an engagement with the hidden curriculum, and it's begun to form a picture of the whole university as a space for the co-production of knowledge. Part of the challenge that we faced in cultivating hope has been to engage at the optimum scale, where we can have a visible positive effect. On the one hand, positive thinking says that we should focus on our sphere of influence with small-scale actions in our personal lifestyle choices, like changing to a renewable energy provider, opting for a plant-based diet, or reducing air travel. But this focus on our capacity as individual consumers isn't resulting in the kind of change that we need within the time available. Plus, it corresponds on a deeper level to a sense that we can't influence political change at the national, much less international level. Between the individual scale and the vast mass of society, though, lies the organisation, such as a university, where we can amplify our individual agency through collective action, and we can do this within a defined structure that we're familiar with but may not have engaged with as a space of possibility. So what would we do if our university became a cooperative? Would we switch to an ethical bank? Elect our Vice-Chancellor? Reshape the curriculum to engage more fully with the climate crisis? These questions might sound idealistic, but cooperativism is a tried and tested system for collective ownership and collective decision-making. A key purpose of a university is to produce new knowledge and insights, and a key way that it does this is by enabling the encounter of difference and the critical evaluation of evidence and ideas, statements and discourses. Following the work of Mike Neary and Joss Wynne and the Cooperative College in Manchester, I'm proposing that a cooperative university could perform these functions within a collectively defined vision of higher education for a safe and just space. I think we need a cooperative university that could explicitly engage with plausible climate scenarios. This diagram illustrates the 5 shared socio-economic pathways developed by the UN Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change. Climate scenarios are not predictions, they're models of possible futures. And because these models are built using a systematic method for analysing interactions between different factors, they can be revised and updated as new information comes in or as priorities change. With war in Ukraine and the Middle East, genocide in Gaza, and Donald Trump in the White House, the world is currently on track for a disorderly mix of regional rivalry in the centre of this diagram and the riskiest scenario of fossil fuel development on the right. And as the global temperature increase exceeds 1.5 degrees Celsius, it's becoming more likely that interlinked tipping elements in the Earth system will be triggered, producing cascading systemic risks. The social ecological system is already entering this period of deep uncertainty, so we urgently need to prepare our students for a range of plausible futures, some of which go far beyond the discourse of sustainability. The Stockholm Resilience Centre has identified 9 planetary boundaries in the Earth system. The amber zones show where the world has gone over the limit and is into ecological overshoot. The green zone in the centre of this diagram, though, shows a safe operating space for humanity. The economist Kate Raworth has interpreted the planetary boundaries as an ecological ceiling, to which she has added a social foundation of human rights. And between the ecological ceiling and the social foundation is the safe and just space for humanity. The social foundation includes human rights to housing, energy, water, food, healthcare and education. It also includes networks of friends, family and community, income and work, gender equality, social equity and political voice. And lastly, the very basis of the social foundation is peace and justice. Clearly, there can be no peace without justice and no justice without truth. Yet spectacular crimes of ecocide and genocide are committed now in full public view, while a selective application of principles is breeding confusion and apathy, and the suppression of free speech is normalizing ignorance. Cognitive dissonance around the climate crisis is becoming widespread. For example, the US military analyzes climate change as a strategic threat multiplier. Yet researchers at Durham University and Lancaster University have shown that the US military is one of the largest consumers of fossil fuels in history, which it burns up in endless wars to seize control of oil and gas deposits. Similar contradictions emerge when universities' aims of staying within a just share of the global carbon budget are subordinated to their plans for growth, which is based on international jet travel. Psychoanalyst Sally Weintraub has examined the forms of climate change denial and identified disavowal as a destructive attack on the rational mind. She says, the more reality is systematically avoided through making it insignificant or through distortion, the more anxiety builds up unconsciously and the greater is the need to defend with further disavowal. The downward spiral of disavowal limits teaching, learning and research. And to break this cycle, though, we need to return to peace and justice, foundation of the Sustainable Development Goals of the UN, which calls on citizens to promote peaceful and inclusive societies, provide access to justice for all, and build effective, accountable and inclusive institutions. So how might a university become a more effective, accountable and inclusive institution? In the UK, the Higher Education and Research Act requires UK universities to perform their functions in the public interest. I propose that this should include collectively developing the knowledge, the understanding and the practices needed to tackle the climate crisis at the scale and speed required. Crucially, the Higher Education and Research Act allows universities to transfer their assets and to change their structures of governance. Perhaps the most familiar structure of governance is the hierarchy. Now, hierarchies do work extremely well for the purposes of concentrating wealth and power. But with students, I've been discussing whether a hierarchy can resolve the issues it's implicated in, such as extreme inequality or the mental health crisis. Can any structure of governance based on top-down communication protect freedom of speech and promote ecological and intercultural understanding? In contrast to the hierarchy is the network. 60 years ago, Paul Baran joined the dots in 3 different ways to picture a centralized, decentralized and distributed network. The distributed structure envisioned a network of computers that could still function even after a nuclear attack. Today, as global supply chains are hit by social ecological crisis, decentralized or distributed structures offer much needed resilience. But while resilience is necessary for a safe space, it is not sufficient for a just space. A just space requires a method not only for solving problems, but also for reconciling different subject positions, interests and aims. And this demands democratic, inclusive and accountable decision-making within a system of shared governance. And that is where cooperatives come in. Cooperatives are legal entities owned by their members and distinguished by democratic decision-making, fair profit distribution and member education. A cooperative university could maximise its own capacity to learn by going beyond researching and teaching about the climate and ecological crisis to actively involving all the job families in the university in a living case study of what UNESCO has termed whole institution transformation. Trebor Scholz at a New School in New York coined the term Platform Co-operatives to describe a new kind of cooperative that uses technology for social benefit and not social harm. As an ethical alternative to capitalist platforms like Uber or Deliveroo, platform co-ops combine the job security of cooperatives with the flexibility and innovation of digital platforms. I would especially like to have discussions and to hear your thoughts on the risks and opportunities that AI brings to the aim of platform cooperatives in relation to the ecological crisis. These risks include the climate impact of the phenomenal surge in demand for electricity which is being caused by AI. The risks also include the private control of information and communication through proprietary software, much of which originates in military applications. The conjunction of AI use, data centres and electricity generation is key to critical infrastructure for national security, and this in turn brings in issues associated with the unaccountable corporate security industry. But while sharing awareness of such risks and constraints, it's important not to be entirely determined by them, and we need to discuss the opportunities for platform cooperatives to use digital technology to develop, especially within higher education. In sharp contrast to the use of digital technology for corporate control and military conflict, a key principle of cooperativism is cooperation with others in a wider network. In this way, mutual benefit can create an expanding pattern of cooperation across interconnected domains and territories, from cooperative information systems to energy suppliers, insurance and banking. Cooperativism also has much in common with trades unions. The Universities and Colleges Union protects staff against unfair treatment and precarious conditions, such as from hourly paid and fixed-term contracts. The better pay and conditions that unions achieve, though, don't just benefit their members, but all staff and our wider society. For example, UCU protects academic freedom, both as the formal freedom from constraints on research and teaching content, and also the concrete freedom of secure employment, which allows staff paid time to research complex or even controversial issues. A cooperative university could work with trade unions to complement their protective function with the active promotion of academic freedom in creative and critical thinking. A cooperative creche or after-school art club are examples of practical measures that could enable staff and students with parenting responsibilities to practice mutual support while widening access and participation to expand the learning community. A cooperative university might be able to contribute to networks of solidarity and allyship with communities in the global south that are unjustly impacted by climate breakdown. And if it could avoid token gestures and cultural appropriation, the cooperative university might not just study, but be transformed by non-Eurocentric paradigms such as Afrofuturism and indigenous knowledges. In summary, a cooperative university could enable staff and students to work together as members to collectively tackle the social ecological crisis. A platform cooperative could play with and adapt existing digital platforms to prototype an experimental co-op within one or more universities. This network could grow and develop according to the skills and interests of its members. Critical engagement with the hidden curriculum in this way could be transformative, but iterative cycles of action and reflection might take us further and enable us to envision different conditions of learning and perhaps to develop plausible climate scenarios of peaceful coexistence with other cultures and species on our shared planet. Thanks for listening, and please get in touch if you'd like to discuss this further.